Hello and welcome to United for Good. I'm Margaret O'Neill with the United Way of Central West Virginia. As always, a pleasure to be with you, and our thanks again to the Library Television Network and the West Virginia Library Commission for allowing us to be part of their programming. We hope you've had a wonderful summer as we start to get into back to school. Just always a reminder, if you've not seen our show before, that the United Way operates West Virginia 211, which is your information and referral network. If you run into issues with things like your rent being overdue, or your utilities stretched, or your children might need some extra school supplies, or clothing or food might be an issue, we just want to encourage you as you enter the school year to reach out to us through 211. That's all you have to do. Dial that number from your cell phone, your landline. You can Google us. You can find us on Facebook. But we are ready and able to do our very best to meet the needs for you and your family, and we hope you have a wonderful and safe school year. We continue our wonderful programming that we've done this year to talk about our community partners, all the ways that people in the Central West Virginia and the Greater Kanawha Valley reach out to the United Way and how we partner with them, and some of the great work that you may or may not realize happens right here in our community. And today I couldn't be more excited to introduce you to my friend Whitney Barnhart. Welcome, Whitney, to our show.
Thank you for having me.
I say all the time, I bet you don't know that you have an FBI office in Charleston, because I didn't until 2018, but we do have an FBI office here. And I'm going to let you tell us all about that. But before that, I just always want people to know a little bit about our guests, and that you're here, you're local, you live here, your kids go to school here, your husband's here, but you haven't always been. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found your way to West Virginia.
Sure. Well, I am originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh yeah, not too far.
Not too far away. That's where I grew up, and I went to school at the University of Alabama. I studied public relations and Spanish, and I thought I wanted to be an attorney for the FBI. So I interned with the FBI, and I started my career 15 years ago, actually in West Virginia.
Wow.
When I got the phone call, I cried
How
because
exciting.
I thought I was going to Washington, D.C.
And they sent you to West Virginia.
And they said, congratulations, you're going to Bridgeport, West Virginia. I was like, oh no.
No culture shock there.
It was terrible. I drove into the state and I was crying because I couldn't see anything. I wasn't used to all the trees. But
oh no, because flat. You came
flat
from
New
flat.
Mexico,
Yes.
we don't have any trees like that. Alabama did, but West Virginia was a different feel. But it ended up being the best experience of my life. I fell in love with the state, and they offered me a job at the end of my internship at the Critical Incident Response Group in Quantico, Virginia. So I spent 10 years working critical communications and crisis response for the FBI.
That gives me chill bumps. Like, I just want to be you. Like, I just want to do that. So
it was
bad.
amazing.
Too old now, but it would have back in the day. We're going to talk about that in a minute so you don't miss your opportunity, but what a great experience for you.
It was great. But when we started having family, we needed to be closer to parents to help, and we wanted to be part of a community, and we didn't have that in Washington, D.C. I commuted 2 to 4 hours a day, and we started thinking ahead, what are we going to do when our kids are in school? We don't know anybody. They can't pick them up from daycare if they're sick. And so we started looking at if we would go to New Mexico, where my family was, or if we would move here. And we decided 6 years ago to move here. And I've been here ever since. We built our dream home. We're here to stay.
And got a pool. Just got a brand new pool.
We are putting a pool in, so we are definitely here to stay.
Yeah, forever home. But we're so glad. West Virginia is so fortunate to have you. And you know, I think, you know, we're in such a weird time. You know, I've talked about this, but such a weird time in law enforcement in general. And, you know, just always wanting to make sure that anybody who's keeping us safe is kept safe, and ways that we can do that. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things, but we'll start with how I knew that there was an FBI in Charleston, West Virginia. Was you offer an opportunity for business community leaders, nonprofit leaders like myself to come through what we call the FBI Citizens Academy.
Correct.
And I'm a graduate of the 2000, I was right after COVID. I'm the 21 graduating class. But what an experience it was for me, and I mean, you heard me describing it here to the folks at the studio. It was just a really good time, and I have my shrine to the FBI in my office. And you know, if somebody is misfortunate enough to say, "What's that?" they have to listen to the whole montage of my experience with the FBI. But share a little bit about that, and then we can talk about other things you want people to know about our local FBI office.
Okay. We have a Citizens Academy program every spring. We are part of the FBI Pittsburgh Division, and if you didn't know, the FBI has 56 field offices across the United States. When I tell people we're part of Pittsburgh Division, they automatically think that we live and work in Pittsburgh, but we don't. They just have program responsibility for the state of West Virginia. I sit here in the Charleston, West Virginia Resident Agency, and we have 5 other offices across the state in Huntington, Clarksburg, Charleston here, Martinsburg, and Wheeling, and we just reopened our satellite office in Beckley that's tied to
Nice.
our Charleston
Yes.
office. But the purpose of Citizens Academy is to bring business, religious, community leaders, academic members, minority groups, anybody that's influential in the community to come in and meet local FBI agents and work together to learn what it is that we are investigating here in West Virginia, what trends we are seeing, and really to start at the ground level to break down that, one, there is an FBI office here in West Virginia.
Yes.
The FBI is real life FBI agents and professional staff that live in your community, that conduct investigations here in the state. And a lot of times when I go out to schools and education groups, people don't know that we're here.
Right.
And so we like to educate what the FBI is, what we're doing here, why we have a role, what is the difference between the federal government and the state police and our county sheriff's offices, how do we work together to investigate these crimes. Citizens Academy is a perfect way for us to do that because a lot of our agents and professional staff were not from West Virginia.
Right.
We have been placed here and we have a lot to learn. There's a lot of history.
We're a little different. No lie. In the best possible way, but we are a little different here.
Yes, and we rely on our community members to help us learn the culture, the history of what it is that you're concerned with where you live. What do you see in your neighborhood? What are your concerns in your professional occupation that you think the federal government could help you with?
And we can't obviously go through the whole academy because it's weeks long. So it's a night a week for
10 weeks.
10 weeks. And then you have a great graduation and you can invite your family and it's super awesome. But I think that the two big takeaways I had lots, but the two that kind of stick with us still is that I had no idea all of the different things that were involved in an investigation, right? So unfortunately, I had firsthand knowledge of an investigation of a blue-collar crime that was white-collar crime that was committed in a group that I was familiar with. And it was fascinating to watch the process from the time that the complaint had been made to the time that sentencing, and then now that person's in prison. But that whole process to watch how the FBI interacted from the first complaint to local police and then how everybody worked together to ensure that that person was, held accountable for the really significant harm that he caused the organization that he was a part of. But that was amazing to me to watch you guys do that, and then to be able to hear the outcome was great. And then I never realized the really intricate work between departments, so that if the city of Charleston or the city of Beckley are having a drug issue, or there's been you guys are doing all the things and you're listening to people, all the things. They really do all the things that you see on TV. They do all the things.
We do.
But when you're doing all of that, just really how important it is the relationships are between the departments, and that you have that there's it's none of this, what people might anticipate, that we're in competition with any of those other agencies, that you guys always just work together for the good of us, of the people that you're serving.
We do. We have wonderful relationships with our law enforcement partners, but we have to because we are a small office here. And when people hear the FBI, they think that we have all the resources that we can throw at a problem, and we do have that at headquarters and across the country. But here in West Virginia, the offices are small. We only have 12 agents in Charleston, 7 in Huntington, and then we have professional staff. And we rely on task force officers from the state police, from Kanawha County Sheriff's Office, from all of our local and state federal agencies come and work with us in our task forces to investigate things like the opioid problem with our Talk West Task Force, our Drug Counterintelligence Task Force, our Joint Terrorism Task Force, white collar crime, anything that we're investigating, we have task force officers that are assisting us because we can't do it alone.
And the other thing I would just say, if you're passing through the channels and you're listening to us and you're like, I don't even know, I've called any police, right? Because I've heard this in years of working with nonprofits. I've called about my neighbor. I'm sure it's a drug house. There's been 20 cars in and out of there for the last whatevers. And my perception is nothing's being done about it.
Yeah.
And just, again, that learning curve of you guys have your hands tied by multiple laws and things that we want to be in place if we're innocent, right? We don't want you pounding down our door if we're not doing anything. So you have to depend on lots and lots of behind the scenes work before you can actually make an arrest, or maybe be visibly seen as, we know that's a drug house. And how hard it is to get people to put a wire on or go out and get that actual, proof that you can do those things. And you don't have to talk about all that, but just, I think there is that misnomer that nothing's happening when you guys are just busting a hump to make it happen, and nobody can see that.
Yes, and our first obstacle is letting the community know what it is we need to know. So like you said, the complaint about a drug house, or you think suspicious activity is going on, What happens when your power goes out? You just think, oh, well, my next door neighbor, they're going to call the power company. But if you don't call and file a report, they won't know that something's happening at your house. And the same with criminal activity is true. If you see something and you do not report it, we won't know and we can't get involved. So the FBI can't just peruse the internet and find people and start investigating them.
I think I'll come sit in front of your house and
We
see
have
who goes
to, we rely on our community partners and our community members to make a report to us to say, I think this, or I have information, and they can do that multiple ways, whether they call 1-800-CALL-FBI, tips.fbi.gov, they can stop by our office in Charleston, but they call and they make a complaint or they report something. Once we have that information, then we can begin the investigation and we can start looking into it.
And I can do that confidentially, right? I
Yes,
mean to interrupt
absolutely.
you, but just the comfort of
your name doesn't have to be associated with it. You can submit tips online and disassociate your name, your identity with it, but it gives us a starting point to start looking into it. And if we go back to the drug house example, sometimes local state partners are doing something, but because of the investigation, we can't maybe have a police presence at that house that day because there may be a larger investigation that could compromise. And so it is strategic in nature, but law enforcement really has to have the help of the community to have that two-way trust, because if there's concerns in a neighborhood of crime occurring and nobody calls, the police department is not going to know about it.
Right.
And so you have community members then that think, well, the police never come to my neighborhood, or why is the FBI coming to my door for this? I don't understand. That's not a federal violation. Well, because of the 1-800-CALL-FBI number, when our office here in Charleston or across the state gets a tip and it gets routed to us, our agents have to go out. That's part of their investigative process. And they check all the boxes and make sure that we are doing what we need to help our state and local partners as well. But we depend heavily on our community partners to give us that information.
And I can just promise you, because if you haven't figured out yet that like I have a pretty bad addiction to the FBI and the great work that they do, but as I see things, right? So sometimes we see unfortunate things or calls come into 211 that we feel are, you know, just really more than a service issue, more than I need shoes, that there might be something else going on. And I am quick to let Special Agent Botsky know if I think there's something going on that they need to know about, and they do follow up with that. So I can promise you that you may not know it, but there is behind the scenes work being done. So we want people to call. That's the first thing, no matter what.
Correct.
And you can be secure and confidential in that. And then I guess on the other side of that, if you have had something done to you personally, you should also make that call.
Correct.
Right? So either way. Tell me a little. I don't want to go into too much of that, but when you go to the academy or to the Citizens Academy, I think the other thing we learned is how many different divisions or departments there are, right? So there was the white collar, there is special agents on child abuse and neglect, there is a drug unit, there is all those things, and they look just like us. Like you will pass them on the street and not know they're an FBI agent, but so committed and dedicated to their work. Like it's always fascinating to hear, you know, the drug cases where they, you know, have spent sometimes months or years, right, to get to the top of the chain, to get to the top of the food chain. Just you want to elaborate on any of those divisions, anything I've left out, or anything you want people to know about the places that they can reach out to you guys?
Sure. I would say that our Crimes Against Children program is one of our top priorities in the state, and unfortunately the crimes that we're seeing being committed are on the backs of the drug trade. We have parents and guardians here in West Virginia that are actually selling their children to pay for their addiction, and it's horrendous. So you see horrible things every day. We see outrageous activity, and it's very hard as a parent myself to witness what's going on, how children in this state are unfortunately being victims of these heinous crimes. But we're also seeing a rise in kids using social media to be sex-torted, and so they meet somebody online. They have learned to socialize online after COVID. They have smartphones, school tablets, they're getting on these devices, they're meeting people they don't really know, and then they quickly fall victim to this person that they think might be a 13-year-old boy in another state, then getting their identity, getting their location of where they live, because a lot of these video games can store IP addresses, your location, the meta tags and pictures that are being exchanged. And these individuals are telling the kids, if you don't send me $25, then I'm going to release this about you to your parents or to your friend group. And that money might not sound like a lot at first. It might be $25, $50, $100. But over and over, once that money comes up, then they feel helpless and that they don't have an option to get out, and they do become suicidal. So we're having a rise in teenage suicides because of what is happening online. And a lot of our crimes against children cases, it's stemming from these kids that are sending pictures of themselves, so they're engaging with people for inappropriate relationships, and then our agents get involved to try to find the perpetrators that are coming here to West Virginia to engage in illicit activity.
So I'm just going to make you repeat a few things. So if you're a parent, sextorted might be a new word for you.
Correct.
And so it is exactly what it sounds. They're extorting children for money.
They are.
And children, it's not enough just to check their phones.
No.
So you mentioned that, but if they're playing online games, could be extremely dangerous, and that has to be a place that you pay attention. But that's often where that sextortion comes, right?
It is.
And you think it's a kid, and I'll
It's
show
not.
you mine if you show me yours, kind of thing. And the next thing you know, we're threatening.
Correct. So we have a new program. It's called Online Safety Starts With You, and we are doing countywide awareness briefings. If anybody's interested in receiving this, I know that they're going to share our website, but we're trying to teach parents and guardians, teachers, and youth the dangers of what's happening online. We are so tired of being reactive that we're trying to be proactive and help these kids and the families, and understanding that many grandparents are raising their children in this state, to give them the tools and tips to get into the devices, to understand that putting a child in a room with a closed door and not having a conversation, not having a trusted relationship with these kids, they don't know what those phones are being used for, and the kids are just seeking relationship and validation from somebody to tell them they're worthy, they're valued, all the things that are absolutely normal, but they are falling into this trap. And so we have to get ahead of this and increase the education and awareness. The state of West Virginia is actually going to be having online education mandated through a new bill that was passed this spring. It's called the
Yay.
SWAT Act, Safety While Accessing Technology.
Oh, I love
starting
that. Yay.
next year, grades will have to have online education, and we're working with the State Board of Education to help with that curriculum that's going to get pushed out.
Because just because I know this because of a person, but it's equally important to explain to that teenager or to that young person, you aren't dumb. That this is happening to really smart people all over the place, and you can't just ignore it. You've got to tell somebody, and you can't get yourself in that suicidal position because you know bad things could happen because you're not dumb. I mean, it's happening to really smart people, and that going into the schools and sharing that education with them, it's going to be so valuable. If a parent or guardian was listening, or grandparent, and they want to have you come and speak to the PTA or to the church group, they just reach out to you through the FBI office?
They can. We have a speaker request form on our website. They can fill out that form, let us know what they're looking for, and then we can schedule events anywhere across West Virginia. I can go and speak.
Awesome. And I hate to bring it up, but just because it is the world we're in, you also do active shooter training
Yes.
and lots of that for lots of organizations and schools across our state.
We do active shooter training in schools and houses of worship for businesses alike. We have trained thousands of people at hundreds of different facilities. Our teams in every resident agency across the state offer this training, and it's unlike anything that you'll ever see elsewhere. We have a very unique program here in West Virginia. It's one of a kind, and our Pittsburgh division is actually trying to model what we're doing here in West Virginia to
Yay.
build it out in Pittsburgh. And part of that reason is one of our supervisors here in this state actually responded to an incident in the northeastern part of the United States at a school, and he had that firsthand experience of being a parent, going to a school as an FBI agent and responding, and the lessons learned from Sandy Hook and what happened at that particular school, to know that we needed to take our Joint Terrorism Task Force and our Safe Schools Initiative, and we needed to build that program here in West Virginia because we do have a lot of access to guns in this state with hunting. People that are hunters and like the sport of shooting, it's more acceptable to see guns. It's not as an odd thing as you might see in New York City or a big city where people don't have as many firearms in suburban areas. Here it might not make you think twice about somebody having a firearm and it being out on the table or the back of their truck.
In Kroger.
Right?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly.
So we just have to teach situational awareness and to have a plan. We're not running through scenarios of, hey, you're going to go here and you're going to do this, but have you thought about if you're at church and your kids are in a different building, where would you go? What would you do? If you're in the grocery store, do you know where you parked your car? Do you know where the exits are? We try to talk through that run, hide, fight model, and that's another option on our website that you can fill out the speaker request and we can provide that training free of charge. Everything we do is free of charge.
Yeah, I love that so much, though. And I think the other thing I'd say to folks, if you're listening, is we tend to think here that's never going to happen here. It's never going to happen in my school. It's never going to happen to my kid. My kids, yeah, I've taught my kid not to interact with people, and so they're not going to do it. And I'm here to tell you, kids are kids, you know, just trust me. you can teach them and teach them and teach them, but you got to make sure you know where to look and that they know that you're looking. And you know, all the things that you talk about in the academy is, you know, the computer can be somewhere in the family room so you can see if they're looking at inappropriate websites, and you can't just assume that it won't happen. And frankly, some of the terrible things that happen to children happen more frequently in West Virginia because we're just a little more trusting, right? We're just a little more, that can't happen. No kids ever get I'm going to lose the word, but bought or sold in West Virginia, because that just doesn't happen, and it's happening all the time.
It is, and we're seeing that.
And you guys have done, I mean, you've arrested people because of that.
We have, and a lot of times the trend that we're seeing now is that the child knows the person that is abusing them in these cases, so they do trust it because it's mom's uncle, friend, neighbor, childhood friend. Everybody knows this person because they were very involved in the community. Oh, he's this, he's that. He would never do that. And time again. So we're not stereotyping anybody. We're not trying to profile a particular person. If you look this way, if you do this, you're more capable of falling into this. But
That's right.
It's just using the data that we have from our investigations here locally to say we're seeing a trend and encouraging dialogue and conversation with community members just to make them aware. Because if you don't know the FBI's here and you don't know federal investigations are taking place in the state, or why we are supporting state investigations because of technology that we have, it's just important to start having those conversations with schools and parents and guardians alike, so we can make this community a safer place. That is our ultimate goal, is to make Charleston, Kanawha County, West Virginia a safe place, because my kids live here and my kids are going to school here, and I want every child to feel safe at school and every community member to feel safe, or to know that they can call a law enforcement official and report something because they have that relationship.
And I just love that. I mean, it is relationship building, and it makes me sleep better at night knowing you guys are here. So I really appreciate it. I don't want to run out of time without talking about the teen academies, because as we kind of alluded to in the beginning, I am now too old to be an FBI agent and live out my dream, but I can live it vicariously through you guys. But if you're, you know, we talk about this all the time, teens, and sometimes, you know, those graduating from high school or graduating out of foster care just may not know the multiple opportunities that are available to them in so many different ways. And one of them, of course, being law enforcement. But had I known some of the opportunities that the FBI would offer, because you don't have to carry a gun. You can be the victim support specialist that we talk to all the time from the United Way perspective, or you can be Whitney, which is like the queen job. You want that. But I mean, there's just so many different, there's the evidence people, but the teen academies can really open the eyes of people, and we have an opportunity coming up in October for teens to take part in that.
We do. We're doing 4 teen academies this year. I'm really excited.
Yes.
It's 2 more than we did last year.
So
We're
exciting.
having one in Charleston, Beckley, Wheeling, and Martinsburg. And this program is for junior and seniors in high school. We're hoping that we can get to these kids prior to them deciding about college, that we can expose an opportunity that they may not know anything about and show that they can have a job here in West Virginia or in public service to give back, to make their community a safer place. Because if they're being raised by individuals that don't have a college degree, or their teachers and counselors don't know about the FBI opportunities, they may not advertise that to them. They may not tell them, if you want to work at the FBI, you need a 4-year college degree. I'd rather have that conversation with a high schooler to say, if this is your dream, if this is your goal, let's set you up on a path to success. Let's get you the scholarships. Let's find the colleges that will work with your current situation to make this an opportunity. Because there's so many education opportunities for youth in this state that can get them where they want to go. But if they don't know about this possibility, then we've failed. And so we're really trying to do a lot more youth engagement, going to the schools, going into these cities. It's a 1-day program, 8 hours out of school. They get excused, and they'll meet with our evidence response team, learn about collection techniques, our SWAT team, and we'll just go through the importance of making healthy lifestyle decisions starting in high school, of how that will affect them down the road. whether they work for the FBI, the state police, or any job, how important it is to live with their head up, held high, and making good decisions.
Because didn't remind me, but I think we did talk about that there are charges that you could have that would prevent you from becoming a member of the FBI or some other law enforcement.
Or using drugs, to let them know what our drug policy is. So when they start going to parties in high school or college, that could come back to haunt them, because we do have a background check. We have security clearances that we hold, and it's really important to just lay it out on the table and say, if you want to work here, here's our basic requirements, and now this is what we're looking for. Do you like to play video games? Do you like computers and coding? Do you like cars? Do you like technology? Do you like talking to people, communicating? Are you an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor?
There's a place for you.
Anything that the private sector has, we have in the FBI. We only have 56 field offices in the United States. I say only because that's actually like hundreds of offices with our resident agencies. But then we also have a presence overseas, internationally as well. And travel opportunities are really exciting for people that live here and may have never been out of the state of West Virginia. We have our Criminal Justice Information Services Division in Clarksburg, and we employ over 3,600 individuals in Bridgeport.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I love to put
awesome.
that path towards people that want to stay in West Virginia and have a federal job, because it's an amazing place to start a career with the FBI.
And look at you.
And now here I am 15 years later.
Yes, and have a wonderful career and,
I do.
and in a great place to take care of your family. And we're so glad you found your way to West Virginia.
Thank you.
Anything else that you would like to share that I haven't asked you that these nice people would want to know about?
I would just say Teen Academy, Citizens Academy, all of our information's on our website. Please help us share the word about the programming. Help us get out into schools, community groups, any place that people think that we need to be, whether it's nursing homes, elderly care facilities, to talk about elder fraud, because elder fraud is definitely
happening
on the
all
rise.
the time. Thank you for bringing that up. Happens all the time.
It does, but we have something for all members of the community. We have our child ID fingerprinting services that we can provide free of charge, where we make little child ID, we fingerprint them. We don't keep these fingerprints, we just put them on paper, make cards for parents and guardians. So that's another service that we provide through our community outreach program. But we are here to serve.
I cannot thank you enough, because it's so, you guys just got like, you know, the 30,000 foot fire hose of all the things that the FBI can do to support our community. And I just can't encourage you enough to take advantage of Whitney and her team, learn more about what they can do to help your church or your business or your school, or if you're just, you know, a group of neighbors who are taking care of your kids or grandkids and you really want to know how to keep them safe and protect them, she will always be willing to help and talk to you. And I'm so grateful to know you. My last plug is there might be some people going to Quantico in December for Whitney's birthday and to actually go to the Academy. So that's one more plug. If you make it through the Citizens Academy, you might get to go to Quantico. So anyway, enough of my enthusiasm. We hope you've enjoyed today's show. I know I have. It is always a pleasure to introduce you potentially to people or things that you may not know exist in our community, in our FBI office here in Charleston. It's fabulous. So we hope you're having, again, a wonderful start to your school year. If there's anything we can do for you with the United Way of Central West Virginia, even if it's how to get in touch with Whitney Barnhart, we are most happy to make that available to you. Until we see you next time, I'm Margaret O'Neill with the United Way of Central West Virginia. This is United for Good.